Well, hello. This is Janet Morana, the Executive Director of Priests for Life. Welcome to Just Ask Janet. Well, here's some facts to start off our show today. Roe v. Wade, 1973, and Doe v. Bolton, the two Supreme Court decisions. People don't realize sometimes that those decisions made abortion legal through all 9 months of pregnancy. Healthy mothers, healthy babies. That's the truth. Now, you might say, oh, come on, Janet. Do abortions really occur in the 7th, 8th, and 9th month of pregnancy? Shocking, shocking. They do. And here's what's even more shocking. If a baby who's born alive at the 7th, 8th, or 9th month of gestation during an abortion and is born, and instead of the abortion is doing this job 100% and killing the baby, and that baby's born alive and takes a breath, guess what happens? That baby is left to die. No medical attention. So you see, brothers and sisters, we still have a lot of work to do. And joining me today on this program are two people, two good friends of our ministries, who they are working tirelessly to expose this horror and put abortion on trial. So welcome right now to my program, Mike Siebel. He's a lawyer and attorney in New Mexico, and poor Mike, he could be making a lot more money than doing abortion on trial. Welcome, Mike.
Welcome, Dan. We're so happy to be here.
Okay. And also joining him and me is Jamie Jeffries, and she hails from Arizona, and she assists Mike in dealing with the stories and dealing with the women and getting the medical records. And Jamie, welcome to the program. Well, listen, I think, Mike, I'm going to start with you, okay? We said this whole topic today is abortion on trial. We're talking about late-term abortion. So tell us, how do you go about finding a case to even bring an abortion on trial for damage maybe done to a woman, or, you know, that they've killed the baby? I mean, what's the whole story of what you're able to accomplish?
So let me go back to what I was able to accomplish years ago. A while back, we'll go back to the Planned Parenthood videos that you saw. I worked here in New Mexico with the Select Panel on Infant Lives to expose the UNM fetal tissue network with Curtis Boyd. During that time period, we found a woman who was affected by it by the name of Jessica Duran, and she has filed suit against Curtis Boyd for this fetal trafficking. And because of that, we have gotten additional clients one after another. Because of her story is one way we have gotten them. And just recently, this week, we have another Curtis Boyd case. It's not a fetal tissue case, but it's going to be a shocker as well. And the other way is through post-abortive ministries and sidewalk advocates and pregnancy centers. When these women go through the abortion, they actually sometimes come back or are noticed by these sidewalk advocates. So we work in conjunction, especially here in New Mexico. We have an incredible network of people who they know when anybody is hurt, anybody is injured, anybody who has a possible case to call us immediately, and we will intervene on their behalf.
That's great, Mike. And so, well, Jamie, what's your role in assisting Mike? Explain that to our people. We're hearing her. Huh?
I think we got Jamie on mute.
Yeah, Jamie, we have to have you on mute. Okay, but meanwhile, Jamie, are you unmuted? Thumbs up? Yes? Let's see if we can hear her now. Jamie? No, we still can't hear you, Jamie. Oh my goodness, I heard it before beautifully. All right, well, Mike, I'm going to stay with you till we can get Jamie's audio fixed, okay? So, Mike, walk us through one of the cases that you're allowed to talk about.
Well, we've got 4 cases that are now on abortion on trial for Curtis Boyd, and 1 for Franz Liard down in the south, El Paso, New Mexico. And those are the active cases. We've got more than that we can't talk about. But the primary one, the one that's going to be the biggest impact in the United States, is going to be a case called Tina and Nicole Atkins versus Curtis Boyd. which is surrounding the death of their daughter, Keisha Atkins. Keisha Atkins was a 23-year-old girl, 6 months pregnant. And she went into the University of New Mexico and sought a late-term abortion electively. There is no medical reason whatsoever for Keisha's abortion during this time period. And when she went in to UNM, they say, we don't do late-term elective abortions at UNM. We only do them for extreme cases. So we're going to refer you to Curtis Boyd. So she was referred to Curtis Boyd. On the first day, she had digoxin injected. After that first day, everything kind of went, smooth under what they consider smooth. They sent her home. She came back in the morning. She had more laminaria replaced. Left her again that morning to return the next day, but she got a little sick in the afternoon, and she came back and she started experiencing pain. When she started to experience pain, they gave her more fentanyl and sent her home again. In the middle of the night, their water broke, essentially probably 11, 12 o'clock at night. We're having a little bit of trouble pinning down the time period. Her mother called the clinic, and they said, oh, don't worry about it. Just wait until the morning. They waited another 8 hours. She walked into the clinic. When she got into the clinic, her temperature was extremely elevated. She also had shortness of breath, and they let her sit there for 10 hours. And then after 10 hours of being short breath, having shortness of breath and elevated temperature, what ends up happening is her O2 set dropped from 94, which was a little low all day, into the 80s. And the doctor didn't know what to do. She had no clue. So she gave her Benadryl, which I have no clue why she did. She went to the hospital where she was admitted with a 24,000 white blood cell count. Her lipase was 3.2. The regular lipase is 0.5. Both of those are indication of extreme sepsis. And because sepsis, you die essentially a little bit more each hour. By the time she got there, they couldn't save her. They tried another labor induction, which is the subject of why we're suing UNM, along with the negligent referral to Curtis Boyd's. But I mean, they couldn't save her. So her lungs filled with pink fluid. She could barely talk. Her oxygen dropped so low that she said, Mom, I'm going to die. She became delirious. They rushed her to the emergency room, and she died of septic myocardiopathy, which was then covered up by the OMI doctors, which has always been a subject. And we're still investigating the extent of that cover-up.
So that's amazing, Mike. But let's go back to Jamie now. I think we got our audio fixed. And so, Jamie, I know Mike's the lawyer, but what's your role here?
Okay, so we can hear me, right? We're good, hopefully. So my role with Abortion on Trial is the executive director, and what I do is I work in partnership with Mike, trying to sort of look at these cases. We've lost me again. Oh, goodness. Can you not hear me? Okay, I think you guys can hear me. Okay, sorry, I'll keep going. So I work with Mike on these cases. I look at them and see how we can use the information to benefit the fight for life. And so we take what information we can and deliver that to the public for pro-life advocates and people to see the truth of what's happening, especially in these late-term clinics like Curtis Boyd's. And then I also get to walk alongside the clients, the plaintiffs of these lawsuits, and really help these women on their earthly justice, path, and trying to stand up for them, show them some love in their recovery journey, and get to walk that post-abortive healing aspect with the clients while protecting them in this really intense battle, because post-abortive healing is a lot for a woman to go through in any circumstance. But when you add a high intensity lawsuit on top of that, it can be really hard for these women, and they're so brave to come forward. And so part of my role is to just be there for them and sort of ask them what they need and deliver what they want heard to the public. There's a lot that these women have to say, and I get to help be a voice for them too, which is really awesome.
So, Jamie, now, Mike was just telling us about Keisha's case and her family. What can you tell us about that same case?
The Keisha Adkins case is heartbreaking. For me, there's so much about Keisha's case that tells us really how awful what is happening in these late term abortions. It really is just awful. And the way that I felt really most impacted from Keisha's case was by looking at her medical records. And her family has given us the ability to put those out to the public to see. And looking at her medical records from Curtis Boyd's abortion clinic and seeing how much of just extremely heavy dosage of narcotics she was getting for multiple days, being given oxy and fentanyl and Versed in the clinic and then sent home for the night, and then coming back and getting more oxy and fentanyl and Versed. She was effectively just drugged out of her mind for days while trying to labor and deliver a baby that was no longer alive. And that just really shook me as far as just being a young woman. The thought of somebody drugging you is just, I know medicine happens in medical procedures, but this is something else. There's no reason why these women should be so incredibly drugged up for days on end outside of a hospital setting. It's so dangerous. And so for me, that's something I really want to make sure young women know. Like, if you go through with a late term abortion, you are going to be heavily drugged for days. And that's scary.
So, Mike, how many active cases would you say there are now that you're handling of trying to sue these abortionists for damage to women?
Can't hear either of you in this situation, so I'm trying to see what I can do here on
All right.
my audio.
All right. Well, then I'll skip that question. I'll go back to Jamie. Jamie, can you hear me? Just nod. Yes. Okay. So, Jamie, about how many cases that you're assisting Mike with right now? And there's two kinds of cases I want to ask you, Jamie, about. Obviously, there's the cases where we're suing for damage to women. But then do you also have any cases where you heard that the baby was born alive? So tell us about that.
So to answer your first question, our number of cases right now is just over half a dozen active and ongoing cases. 5 of those are against Curtis Boyd and his late-term abortion facility. So we have a lot of our focus in the Southwest right now on Boyd's clinic, but we also have cases in other areas. As far as the born alive aspect, it's really difficult to say because the documentation on the part of these clinics is so poor. They aren't going to put in a file if a baby is born alive or not. And we have our concerns and questions on that. We know that based on the type of procedure that they're doing at Curtis Boyd's clinic, being digoxin induction abortions, that has a failure rate of 8 to 15%. And with the amount of late-term abortions they do per year, that's dozens and dozens of babies that are being delivered after the digoxin fails to cause the death of that baby. So we're looking at, possibly a very large number of born alive infants, happening just at Curtis Boyd's clinic alone every year. They're not going to tell us that. They don't keep good documents on anything, but let alone something as big as that. We would have to really have a case where a woman said, I went in and my baby was born alive, and they didn't save the baby. But again, with the amount of heavy narcotics these women are receiving, there's just no realistic way that a woman would be conscious enough to realize that she had delivered a live baby and that the baby was then allowed to die. If she did see that happening due to the Versed amounts that she had, she would probably forget it within the hour. So it's a very hard thing to prove, but we're sure it's happening.
Well, just so everybody can understand, because some of our people watching right now may not. When we're talking about digoxin, this is what the abortionists do. They do an ultrasound that the mom can't see of the baby, And with digoxin, that's a drug. And what they have to do is inject it through the mother's abdomen, through her, into the uterus. They have to get it into the baby, and they have to inject it into the baby's heart to literally stop that beating heart. Now, what we're talking about when this fails is because they think they got it, and they miss, or they didn't get enough in, and the needle moves and all this jazz. If you followed the case of Kermit Gosnell, he was famous for having these failed abortions and the babies born alive. That was why he was brought on trial. And in fact, his equipment was so old. I actually saw it because I was in the courtroom. The ultrasound must have been an ultrasound from the 80s. And so can you imagine trying to find a baby's heart with a needle? Forget it. And so that's how these babies are born alive. It's because they're using digoxin, yes, but they're missing the target. And assuming they did get the target, and that's how that baby is born alive. So I'm going to go back now. I think we have Mike's audio fixed. So Mike, question back to you, of course, is I just asked Jamie about babies born alive, and she was saying how it's very hard to prove and this and that. And yet we do have statistics, even from the CDC, that there have been babies born alive, and it's been reported. Do you have any experience with that?
You know, we don't have a direct experience. So UNM actually has a policy on babies born alive. We're about to go into that a little bit further. We found it on through some inspection of public records requests. They just they don't even send them over to the delivery room according to their policy. What I see though is testimony from a lot of the D&E cases on the national basis, with digoxin rates from failure rates anywhere from 5 to 18%, depending on the experience of the particular abortionist and the skill of the abortionist. Boyd, if you go to our website, taught himself, so I don't imagine he's really skilled at doing this. It should be done in a hospital setting, no matter what. He doesn't do it in a hospital setting. And it should be done probably by a maternal fetal medicine expert. And he is no maternal fetal medicine expert. They're mainly family medicine physicians and OBGYNs over at his clinic. So the failure rate's going to be extremely high. The problem is you really need a whistleblower to come out and say that this has happened. And like Jamie said, the women are so doped up on drugs that they cannot even remember what happened. So we're really going to need somebody from the hospital settings themselves to blow the whistle on a Curtis Boyd or the University of New Mexico or a Leroy Carhart or Hearn.
Well, and I want to encourage everyone, if you want to follow the work of Mike and Jamie, they have a great website, and it's abortionontrial.org. I really encourage you to go there and spread the word about this, because, cases like this, like Keisha Atkins and others, it shocks people because, people, the other side likes to make it sound like have an abortion today, no big deal, go back to work and school tomorrow, and what's the big deal? It's fine. Reproductive health, they use those terms. But when you see the care for women in these abortion clinics, it's horrific. But I want to go back to Curtis Boyd just for a moment. And I guess I'll start with you, Mike. But obviously you have several cases against Curtis Boyd and his clinic there in New Mexico. First of all, how old is he? And what's the estimate of how many abortions do you think he does or are done at his clinic annually?
I'm going to tell you something. He is 84 years old. He has not done an abortion for 5 years. He just testified to that. But he has testified that he has killed over 100,000 babies during his career. And that's just him personally. He also has a clinic in Albuquerque and Dallas. I imagine with all the clinicians that are there, between those two clinics, they've killed between 500,000 and 750,000. He is the godfather of abortion, the most prolific abortionist in this country that goes all the way back to 1965. There is nobody who's killed more people that I know in American history.
I mean, that if that doesn't shock everybody right now, I don't know what you can do. To hear that, one guy, he's still at it, meaning he's 84 years old. He hasn't retired. Why? He likes killing babies. And even if he's physically not doing them, he's running these clinics that are doing it, right, Mike? I mean, that's what you're telling me, right?
Well, I think he likes killing babies, and I also think he's under a little bit of a delusion. I got to spend 6 hours with him, and you can see this when you go to Abortion on Trial. I mean, he's not exactly. It's almost as though he. I can't even explain it. He thinks he's being compassionate. He actually says he's a compassionate man, and he's doing the will of God. So it's a really strange phenomenon when you meet Curtis Boyd or any of these abortionists face to face in your office and you see their presence there.
Yeah. I mean, I have also had the opportunity to meet abortionists who have converted over to the pro-life side and stopped doing abortions. And you're right, both Mike and Jamie, in that they get so almost numb after doing one after the other, after the other, after the other, that they don't realize the horror they're doing, and they do convince themselves that they're really truly helping women. So, Jamie, I'd like to ask you right now, what would you like the people watching right now and listening to this program do? What kind of, because people must be saying to themselves, oh, this is horrible. Janet, what can we do? What can we do? What would you recommend they do?
Yeah, we need help. Truly, these cases are immense cases, and the defendant, being Curtis Boyd, is a really, really powerful man. And truth be told, people need to get the word out about these. I refer often back to the Gosnell case because when we saw the movie come out about that, a lot of people in my pro-life circles were just totally outraged that we didn't know about this, or that in the film, the courtroom was empty at this trial. Pro-lifers weren't there. And I say all the time that I refuse to let Boyd's case be a Gosnell repeat. The pro-life community needs to know, because it is just as big, if not bigger, than the Gosnell case. And having 5, cases against Boyd is huge. We need people to support these cases and understand the impact that they will make. And it's more than just helping a post-abortive woman with a lawsuit. It's so much more than that, and will gain ground for the pro-life community. So see this as an avenue to ending late-term abortion, or even farther than that, because not all of our cases revolve around late-term abortion. So go to the website, go to the Facebook, share the information, and learn about these cases, talk about them, and make sure that people know, because once you hear it, you can't unhear it. And the same goes for abortion supporters. Our information is very vital for them to hear. Their life could depend on it.
So you're going to go to abortionontrial.org. Mike, final question to you. We're talking now about Curtis Boyd. You have about 5 cases against Curtis Boyd. So I don't know if you can tell me the when, but theoretically, when these cases come to actual trial, not only could he be indicted, but then would his clinics be forced to shut down? Like, what's at the end of all this? What can we hope to and pray and expect to have happen?
Well, there's a couple of things that need to happen, and one of them I'll leave up to you guys. I would like to make a criminal referral based on the evidence that we have done, working together as a pro-life community from a national standpoint, so that we can refer this over to the district attorney. I'm a civil lawyer. What I do every day is I sue people for money. And over the years, I've shut down mortgage companies. I've shut down tobacco companies. I've shut down essentially stroke centers, all sorts of things through monetary damages. So what could happen is, if we get a big enough verdict, number one, we're going to close this particular clinic. The biggest clinic in the country, the most late-term abortions, probably 30 to 50% of the late-term abortions in this country. The second thing is, it's going to be a warning sign to every single solitary late-term abortionist in this country. If you don't do this the way it's prescribed, we're going to shut you down as well. So it has the impact of shutting down not only Boyd, but Carhart and Hearn. And those are the majority of late-term abortions in this country. Hospitals won't do them. 43 jurisdictions have said, nope, we're not going to do them. Also, it's going to prevent places like New York, Massachusetts, Illinois, who have recently legalized late-term abortion, from opening up outpatient clinics and expanding abortion access and killing and hurting and destroying emotionally more women all across those major population centers. So this is an extremely important case because it has such wide-ranging potential to shut down the abortion industry and stop further expansion in those states that have recently legalized late-term abortion.
Wow, that's great. Well, again, I want to thank both of you for the work you're doing. You will be in our prayers constantly, and I'm sure everyone listening right now, listen, guys, we need you to storm heaven. Pray for Mike, pray for Jamie, pray for abortion on trial, and pray for the judges, too, who one day are going to hear this case, that they will come down on the side of justice, and we can close this clinic and let it be the start of closing many, many more. So, brothers and sisters, again, you're going to go to that website, abortionontrial.org. Keep informed, spread the word, get it out there. And also, too, at Priests for Life, we have a special website for you to go to also. It's called bornalive.us. And actually, yesterday, at the House of Representatives, the Republicans came to the floor with what's called a discharge petition, because there's a bill in Congress. It passed in the Senate. It's over in the House. And Nancy Pelosi has not allowed this bill to come to the floor for a vote. And it's the Born Alive Infant Protection Act, because you see, you might say, oh, Janet, I thought President Bush signed that law. Well, he did, but it didn't have teeth. It didn't have what happens when the baby is born alive. What are the penalties if they don't take that baby for care? Well, this new bill, it has a lot of teeth to it, because what it says is if a baby is born alive, they must give that person, that baby, care and transport it to a hospital for immediate care for that baby. So the Senate passed the bill in the last Congress, and now it's just sitting there in the House of Representatives because Nancy Pelosi wants to keep it in the closet and won't even bring it to the floor for a vote. So what the Republicans have done is a discharge petition. And what that means is they need 218 congressmen, Republicans or Democrats, to come to the floor, sign the petition, and then that forces the bill out of committee and onto the floor for a vote. So yesterday, the Republicans started, a lot of them are signing it, but we need more signatures. So if you go to bornalive.us, we have all the information there. We want you to call your representatives immediately, today, tomorrow, and tell them, please sign the discharge petition. We want to vote on that bill. We want to protect babies born alive. This is Janet Morana, Executive Director of Priests for Life. Thank you for joining me on Just Ask Janet.
I will be silent no more.